And coming up next here on Eyewitness News, the mysterious deaths of a member of the State Racing Commission and his family. Also, some Spring residents blame their health problems on a toxic waste dump.
And concerns that other chemicals could be headed for Houston's water supply.
I'm Wayne Dolcefino in Austin with the drug issue still dogging her campaign, and Richards takes the offensive.
I'm Deborah Wrigley, kicking bulldozers and taking names. That's the new motto of the city's dangerous building program. I'll have a report.
I'm Debbie Johnson. The day may soon be coming where patients can be diagnosed by doctors without ever coming to the hospital. I'll explain.
These stories and more next on Eyewitness News.
As governor, Mark White imposed a record-breaking state tax increase, and taxes went up an average of $2,431 for each and every Texas family. Now he's running again and won't rule out another tax increase. Ann Richards, she's supporting more state sales taxes, and she predicts a state income tax by 1992. Jim Maddox, fighting for a state lottery and against any state tax increase. 3 candidates, 1 choice. Jim Maddox, for a lottery and against new taxes.
Why would Clayton Williams give $1,000 to Democrat Jim Maddox? He was angry when his company Claydesta lost out on a $250 million state contract. This was his explanation.
We were hoping that Maddox would file suit. While we were trying to encourage him, he calls me and says, I hear we got a suit maybe going. I said, yeah. He said, well, send me $1,000 and I'll think about it.
It may only have been another $1,000 to Williams, but it should be a big concern to us. Do we know the real Clayton Williams yet?
13 Eyewitness News is closed caption for the hearing impaired. You're watching Channel 13, KTRK TV Houston, #1 in Texas. Eyewitness News with Dave Ward and Sheriff Fryer. Marvin Zindler's Action 13. Bob Allen has sports, and Joe Diaz with the weather. Now, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
Good evening, friends. Authorities in the central Texas town of Buda are investigating the deaths of a Texas Racing Commission official, his wife, and their 2 children. Officials say the bodies of David Yost and his family were found in their home to the south of Austin about 11 o'clock this morning. Yost was the director of administration for the State Racing Commission in Austin. Authorities say the deaths may have been the result of a murder-suicide, and we hope to have more on this story a little later in this newscast.
A fear of toxic chemicals has residents in a Spring, Texas neighborhood asking questions about a nearby small chemical company. Residents in Lexington Woods say that several young people began having seizures 2 years ago, and the seizures have not been limited to just those people. Christy Myers reports.
Next thing I knew, I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and I was very...
Patty Watson began having brain seizures 2 years ago. So did her neighbor, Tim Patterson.
I had a massive headache, convulsions. I went into a coma.
To save Tim's life, doctors had to remove part of his skull. He survived but still has seizures. About the same time, dogs in Lexington Woods began having seizures.
Approximately 3 weeks after he had had surgery and got home, we had a collie dog that went into seizures and convulsions, and he ended up dying about 2 days later at Spring Animal Hospital.
Patty's dog had seizures too.
She was having seizures also. So it was just real strange. It just seems like it's too many people to be just purely coincidental.
How many people do you think?
I know of about 5 around here.
Patterson believes 17 dogs in the area died of seizures about the same time, but his vet won't confirm that today, except for this notation on the Patterson dog records that the vet gave the information to the EPA September '88. And that's about when the EPA began a massive cleanup of the Bull chemical site. Solvents, acids, and bases, here all being removed from this location close to Spring Creek and the wells of some Lexington Woods residents. Work here is expected to be finished this week, but what about the danger to the nearby residents? Well, an EPA spokeswoman told me today that the agency doesn't know the answer to that question, and now that the barrels have been removed, soil sampling will begin. Could there be a relationship between this chemical plant and the seizures?
3 medical doctors that has seen Timothy has told us it had to be toxic.
Clearly that's possible. Certainly all sorts of industrial chemicals, pesticides, all sorts of things can cause brain damage and seizures.
Like what Tim had?
For instance.
For residents of the Lexington Woods area to tie their medical problems to Bull Chemical Company, they must await answers from the EPA. And that will come from water and soil tests that will begin as soon as these barrels of chemicals are completely removed. From Spring, Christy Myers, 13 Eyewitness News.
And Spring residents aren't alone in their concerns about toxic waste. In southeast Montgomery County, residents say asbestos and unlabeled barrels have been dumped alongside a creek that leads into Houston's water supply.
That site is just east of New Caney near the Montgomery County-Liberty County line. And reporter Ben Wilson joins us from there to give us details. Ben?
Dave and Shara, when a resident who lives about 300 yards from this site was roaming through the woods with his brother-in-law on December 26th, this is what he stumbled upon. Bags that are clearly labeled danger containing asbestos fibers, avoid creating dust. He also found barrels, 8 barrels containing a pink liquid that was oozing from the barrels into the creek below. The concern is that creek leads to an eastern tributary of the San Jacinto River, which eventually, of course, leads to Houston's water supply system. The resident said he did what he thought he was supposed to do. He reported it to authorities, but here, more than 2 months later, it's still here. Hal Newsom owns 80 acres of land that he has turned into an exotic animal refuge. Peacocks, camels, goats, and deer make this their home. And Newsom and his wife make money by showing them off at petting zoos throughout the year. But the Newsoms are worried because of these unlabeled barrels and these bags marked asbestos they found about 300 yards from their property. They say they called the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department in December, and someone from another department came out in a white truck labeled hazardous materials. But he says the man driving the truck didn't remove anything.
Well, he said we had a problem, and I said, well, what are we going to do about it? And basically, he said, well, I don't know. I said, why don't we just put it on your truck and you haul it out? And he said, well, I'm not going to put it on my truck. And from that point on, they're still sitting here.
Newsom says the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department is not to blame because they did send someone out, though a spokesman for the Sheriff's Department says they have no record of the call. But someone did place a yellow tape around these chemicals, and whoever's responsible hasn't cleaned up the mess. Marcia Newsom says she's concerned about her children and the children of others.
You know, they wouldn't know what that was, and they'd probably poke around in it. But, you know, we don't know what it is. We don't know what damage it's doing. But the fact is that it's been there for 2 months. They didn't clean it up.
Officials with the Texas Water Commission say there are 2 other sites that are being handled in a recent rash of hazardous material reports over the last 3 months. But they say they had no knowledge of this site. They said before the week is over, though, they would. Now, a representative of the Texas Water Commission was out here a few moments ago after Eyewitness News made them aware of the situation. She agreed that it is a problem, and she's, of course, going to take the report back to her bosses. In the meantime, residents around here who get much of their drinking water from wells underground say they probably are going to have their water wells tested. Back to you, Dave and Shara.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, the word went out to contractors today. The city of Houston is back in the business of tearing down dangerous buildings and tearing them down on schedule. That is the promise, anyway, from the City Housing and Conservation Department, which underwent some raising of its own recently. Deborah Wrigley reports on the backlog and the progress.
It's a 10-acre eyesore on the North Freeway, the Vagabond Motel, and it's being beautified by the bulldozer. Actual demolition time, about 3 weeks. But to get to this point, it took the city contractor
about a year.
that long?
Why all the time? I don't know the legal problem that they have to go through. All the paperwork.
It's called red tape, and it's frustrated contractors hired to do the jobs, and most of all, homeowners who live in the shadow of decay and neglect. Melvin Hayward is one of them. He's asked the city for help in getting abandoned property torn down.
We'll get to it sometime, you know. Nothing definite.
And how long does that time turn into?
Nothing.
Compared to other cities, it takes Houston a lot of time. Philadelphia requires less than a month to inspect, then demolish a structure. Dallas about 4 months. Houston needs more than a year. But in the past week or so, the program got a jump start, or better yet, a jolt from complaining council members. Then the city controller suggested using $5 million intended for demolition to ease up pressure on the city budget. Suddenly, things got moving again.
But I can't get to them, and I haven't been able to get to them.
Contractors were first to get the message, and what it said, stick to the schedule.
I think one of the things that Tom said that we probably need to do.
B-Link is the troubleshooter installed to put the $8 million demolition program back on schedule. She wants performance bonds eliminated for contractors and the city paperwork reduced.
We feel that if we can do something about the bottlenecks in the system, make the contractors more accountable for the work that they perform in the city, I think we'll see some improvements in the program.
Enough improvement, she says, to meet a July 1st deadline. That means about 2,000 buildings will have to be torn down in the next few months. It's a big goal, but one the department says it intends to meet, or know the reason why. Deborah Brickley, 13 Eyewitness News.
Well, as we told you just a few moments ago, officials in the central Texas town of Buda this evening are investigating the deaths of a Texas Racing Commission official, his wife, and their 2 children.
Reporter Ann Whitworth from our sister station KVUE in Austin has been covering that story, and she joins us now from Buda with the latest. Ann?
That's right, Shara and Dave. The bodies of the Yost family were found here at their home at 108 Killdeer in Hays County just after 11 this morning. When David Yost failed to show up for work as Director of Administration at the Texas Racing Commission, a co-worker alerted authorities. A constable came out to the house, forced his way in, and there he found the 4 bodies. All of them were dead of gunshot wounds. The mother and daughter were in the master bedroom, the boy in another bedroom, and Mr. Yost in the hallway. The 4 have been positively identified as 41-year-old David Lee Yost, his 35-year-old wife Susan, who worked at the Railroad Commission, their 10-year-old son Eric, and 5-year-old daughter Lauren. It's believed they've been dead for at least a couple of days. Officials here have not yet confirmed the circumstances surrounding their deaths, but a revolver was found at the scene, and an autopsy of the 4 will take place tomorrow morning around 9 in Austin, and we'll know better then. Meanwhile, the neighborhood of Leisure Woods here is in total shock. This family was apparently very friendly, and they never saw any signs of trouble. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Ann Whitworth reporting from KVUE in Austin.
Well, coming up on Eyewitness News, Ann Richards takes a political swing at her 2 major rivals, and the Felix Fraga School Board appointment goes before the court.
A jury is chosen to hear arguments against the former National Security Advisor. And in sports, a college basketball team must decide whether to carry on.
Mrs. Baird was my grandmother, and Dad was our first salesman. When they took me down to the bakery, and I watched them make a loaf of bread, it was family. It was good. Today, Mrs. Baird's bread is still as good and fresh as it was the day she first baked a loaf of bread in her kitchen. Grandmother Baird used family pride to make her bread, and today we still maintain that family pride in making a good loaf of bread every day.
What's missing from New Hillshire Farm light smoked sausage?
It's got that same juicy taste.
Same smoke flavor.
What's missing? This.
New Hillshire Farm Light. It's missing 25% of the fat found in the other leading brand, but hasn't lost one bit of that great smoked sausage taste.
The only thing missing, as far as I can see, is another helping. Come on.
New Hillshire Farm light smoked sausage and Polska kielbasa with 25% less fat.
Remember when every song on the radio was your favorite? 94.5 FM KLDE. The music you grew up with is back. The music that made you feel good then.
The Beatles.
Is making you feel good all over again. KLDE, the only FM station that plays all good time oldies. 94.5 FM KLDE.
Have you ever used illegal drugs? It's a question that's been dogging Ann Richards' gubernatorial campaign for weeks now, and it's a question that she has refused to answer. And today, as political pundits in Austin were weighing the damage the issue was doing to that one-time Democratic frontrunner, the candidate went on the offensive. Wayne Dolcefino reports from Austin.
Have you ever used illegal drugs?
Ann Richards has long since admitted she's a recovering alcoholic, but during last week's gubernatorial debate in Dallas, she would not answer the drug question. Her opponents smelled blood.
Mark and I
have known you a long time, and we understand why you don't want to answer the question.
Hello, Walter. Hello, sweetheart. 4 days later, the drug question was threatening to consume the campaign. It was no longer just a drug issue, it was one of integrity. Why wouldn't Richards be honest one way or the other? She had tears welling in her eyes as she defended her no-comment position.
Because no question has been raised in all of this about my competence, about my ability, about my honesty, and my ability to be the governor of the state of Texas. That has not been raised at all. I feel very sincerely that the continuing dialogue is very destructive. It is destructive for me. It is destructive for other people out there who might seek treatment, because what you are doing and what it continues to do is to raise the question of whether or not you can ever put your treatment and your addiction behind you. And I intend to do that, and I am going to do that.
Richards attempted to turn the tables, suggesting both her opponents had gotten rich in office, selling their power. But reporters wanted to talk drugs. The treasurer did seem to answer the illegal drug question when it was posed another way. Have you ever committed a felony, she was asked.
Not to my knowledge.
But then Richards was reminded that at the Department of Public Safety, aspiring state police officers are required to answer the very same drug question as a condition of employment. Her answer?
Well, I would hope that it would not exclude them from employment.
Will the drug issue stick to Richards in the final days of the spring campaign? It remains to be seen. But you can bet the question will be asked at least one more time later this week at the final Democratic debate in Dallas. Wayne Dolcefino, 13 Eyewitness News, Austin.
Running dispute could soon be over between a local civic association and a private company that was contracted by the state parole board to rehabilitate prisoners. Bob Boudreau reports the Prycor company has agreed to look for a replacement site for its very unwelcomed South Main Street facility.
When this old motel on South Main Street was converted to a reintegration facility for parolees by a private company contracted to the state, the local civic association immediately protested. It wasn't that the South Main Center Association opposed the literacy training, the vocational training, and the substance abuse program offered by Prycor to 200 men who would reside there for up to 3 months each. Rather, it was the familiar cry of, "What's this thing doing in my backyard?" Since then, there has been no dialogue and much animosity between the parties. But now that's changed. The Prycor president, Gil Walker, has met with some local council members and the president of the local association to work things out.
We had gone through about a 2-year period of not talking, fighting across the table, public hearings, trying to go to Austin. And Mr. Walker is relatively new to the corporation as their president, and he reached out to us and we agreed to start talking again.
That talking has seen Prycor agree to move this facility to another, more suitable and mutually acceptable location.
We're looking at some areas where we think that the community would accept what it is that we're trying to do, because that's number one. And then number two, where the property might be conducive from an aesthetic point of view for treating adults and juveniles.
Some city council members will be watching closely.
We told them that as they make plans to move from South Main, we want to make sure the same thing doesn't happen in another part of the city.
I don't want any prisoner pre-release facilities or halfway houses located in areas without the consent and support of the people in the area.
We'd love to have the community support and have them embrace what it is we're trying to do, because it's all of our problem.
So from all indications, this facility is going elsewhere. Where and how soon are directly dependent upon Prycor's ability to find that location that meets its needs without incurring the displeasure of the locals. Given recent history, that job could be as difficult as the reintegration of the men in this facility back into the societal mainstream. Bob Boudreau, 13 Eyewitness News.
Bank robber got away with several $1,000s today when he held up the Galleria area bank this afternoon. Charter Bank, located in the 5400 block of Westheimer, was robbed shortly before 3 this afternoon. Police detectives said the man pointed a gun at a clerk, said, "Give me the money, I don't want to hurt anybody." After the clerk handed over several $1,000s, the robber left out a side door. Police have not released a detailed description of the suspect, but they're hoping that a bank video camera caught the man in the act. That tape is now being reviewed by police officers. A construction worker was struck and killed this afternoon while surveying a stretch of highway. It happened about 2:30 in the 1400 block of Highway 6 out in far west Houston. Police say the victim was surveying in the center section of the roadway when he was hit by a car heading north. The victim, whose name has not been released, was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the case will be referred to a grand jury for the possible filing of charges.
Former National Security Advisor John Poindexter went on trial today in Washington for his alleged role in a conspiracy to cover up the Iran-Contra scandal. The retired Navy Rear Admiral, accompanied by his wife, looked dapper as he arrived at federal court to begin selecting the jury to hear his case. A panel of 206 prospective jurors had already filled out extensive questionnaires. By day's end, 15 people, 13 of them women, had been chosen for the pool from which 12 jurors and 6 alternates will be picked. Among those selected today was a lawyer who had worked in President Bush's campaign. Poindexter, the highest-ranking official to stand trial in the Iran-Contra scandal, is accused of obstructing Congress in its probe of the matter and making false statements in that case. Just ahead, the Rockets look for revenge.
And Andre Ware must still make a big decision. Bob Allen returns with sports.
This year, 10 million people will buy a new car. And today's sophisticated engines deserve an equally sophisticated fuel. Exxon 93 Supreme, the fuel that lets you concentrate on why you bought the car in the first place. Exxon 93 Supreme, precision equipment for precision engines. Just turn the key.
In Texas, strength takes many forms. At First Gibraltar, our strength comes not so much from billions of dollars in assets, but from a thorough understanding of just who that money belongs to. First Gibraltar, for years to come.
Around the Wax Museum, certain words are no-nos, like melt. So I gotta be real careful when I'm eating one of these. It's got ham, melted with cheddar, melted with turkey, melted with Swiss. I guess that's why they call it a melt.
The new ham and turkey melt. Layers of great tastes all melting together on grilled sourdough. From Jack in the Box. For exciting new taste, this is the place.
Melted. What a great idea.
It was a tragic weekend in sports, and here's Bob Allen with more. Bob.
Okay, Sheriff. College basketball world is full of bad news, topped with a tragic death of Loyola Marymount star Hank Gathers, who collapsed on the court yesterday during a game with Portland. 2 hours later, he was pronounced dead at a Los Angeles hospital. An autopsy will be done tomorrow, but it is known that Gathers had been on medication for an irregular heartbeat and had collapsed once before in December, but was okay after that. Gathers was going to be a first-round draft choice this year in the NBA and was one of 2 Division I players to lead the nation in scoring and rebounding. Gathers' boyhood friend Lionel Simmons, who leads the nation in scoring, was told of his friend's death during LaSalle's game last night, and he wept openly. Today, Gathers' teammates at Loyola Marymount remain undecided about continuing on to the NCAA tournament in light of the tragedy.
We just don't understand how a man that strong could leave us so quickly. We're just gonna have to stick together, and I don't really care if we play another game this year. I know he's listening. I just love him so much. And I'm gonna miss you, Hank.
Tragic story. Well, North Carolina State is still reeling over the ongoing point-shaving scandal. University of Maryland was put on 3 years probation for 18 major rules violations that occurred under former head coach Bob Wade. No TV or postseason in 91 or 92, and a repayment of $407,000 of NCAA tournament money. On a brighter note, finally, the Southwest Conference regular season ends tonight with what should be a heck of a game. Texas at Houston, both with 12-3 records, with a winner taking on Rice in the postseason tournament and the loser facing the Aggies. Cougars riding a 10-game winning streak. Tip-off is at 7:30 tonight at Hofheinz Pavilion. And tonight, the Rockets are in San Antonio to face David Robinson and the Spurs with another rematch of the Goliaths of the Midwest Division in Akeem and Robinson. Last time out, Spurs won the game because they have a better supporting cast around their big man, but Robinson and Akeem fought to a draw. Tonight also will mark the first return of Vernon Maxwell to San Antonio since his trade to the Rockets. Also, the Spurs signed swingman Reggie Williams to a free agent contract. Rockets have Tim McCormick back, and John Lucas is on the injured list. It was the opening of spring football practice at the University of Houston, and this year that event is drawing more attention than in years past, with the Heisman Trophy winner suit up with a team or sit out while making his decision to stay in school or turn pro. And the team is led by a new head coach. With that story, here's Jeff McShann.
New coach John Jenkins began practice today without his Heisman Trophy quarterback. An apparent problem with his insurance policy kept him away. But eventually Ware showed up, worked out, and talked with the press. What's the latest situation?
Well, you know,
As far as your decision is concerned.
I still hadn't made a decision. I'm out here practicing, trying to get better every day, and we'll go from there. And I'm feeling comfortable right now, just living day to day.
Andre's not confused. He is not the least bit confused. He's a very intelligent young man, and he wants to explore this. Certainly, as far as and looking at so many avenues, I could talk until the end of practice and probably explain all the different avenues that and elements involved in this thing.
There are a lot of people that wish, you know, they could be in the same position. I'm not going to make a bad decision whether I stay or go. So, you know, it's a good position to be in, I feel.
Andre Ware will have until March 22nd to declare himself eligible for the next National Football League draft. Until he makes that decision, he'll continue to talk things over with his current head football coach. At the University of Houston, Jeff McShann, 13, Eyewitness Sports.
All right, Jeff, today Oklahoma, #1 basketball team in the nation. According to both polls, they jumped from 7 to 1. Kansas is #2. Remember that quadruple double that Akeem had over the weekend against Golden State? Well, the NBA disallowed that today. They changed one of the assists after the game. NBA says you can't do that. Besides, after looking at the tape, they didn't think it was an assist anyway. So he only had a triple double, and Akeem was named the NBA Player of the Week. That's sports. Okay, thank you very much, Bob.
Well, Mother Nature may just be teasing us with all this good weather.
Joe Diaz says better hang on to your umbrella, and his forecast is coming up.
Now at Remco, get a JVC stereo, just $79.99 a month.
JVC top-of-the-line high-tech tunes, dual cassette, CD, 125 watts. Whoa, hold it. I don't have much credit.
You never need credit at Remco, just 4 references.
Oh, I know 4 people. I'm going to do it on a call. Oh, Remco?
What are you waiting for? A new JVC stereo system, only $79.99 a month. Just call, and it's there.
At the Legend and Steak, prime rib is a tradition. And every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday night, it's just $8.95. Our famous prime rib dinner, salad bar, baked potato, just $8.95 Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday at Steak and Ale.
I love chicken, any way I cook it. But I love it best of all when I serve it with cran fruit brand sauce from Ocean Spray. Crisp, tangy cranberries and sweet crushed fruit. It brings a cool, refreshing zing to chicken everything. Cran fruit from Ocean Spray.
What beautiful weather we've had the last few days. Joe Diaz is here to tell us, well, it's changing.
Well, yeah, you got to time these things out so it happens midweek. That's the way everybody likes it. But we are undergoing a bit of a change. We're going to go from a sunny, gorgeous weather pattern to a cloudy, warm, humid with a few thunderstorms thrown in here and there. Last night we looked like this. A lot of clouds across sections of New Mexico, and you can see the clouds increasing from the west. And here's what we're looking at. Here's a band of rain that won't be affecting us. That's moving to the east. There's a front that will be heading toward us, and it will draw up some of this energy down here, so we're looking for thunderstorms to increase across the central portion of the state tomorrow. We may even see a few thunderstorms, and that will continue to be on the increase as the week goes on. More about that in a bit. We had a low today of 50, a high of 72, with no rain being reported under all the clear skies that we had over the weekend. 65 right now, Intercontinental. Channel 13, 67, Hobby 65. The relative humidity, 67%. The wind southeast at 17 miles an hour, so the wind's starting to kick up out there, and the pressure on the rise. And in the rain department, a few showers around Fort Worth over into Wichita. This, as I mentioned, will be moving to the east, not affecting us. A storm system is brewing in the western portion of the country. You can see the disturbance dropping on down. That'll bring heavy mountain snows to Utah, Nevada, and that means that the brunt of all the activity as it lifts to the north and east will be to the north of us, but we're still expecting thunderstorms to work into the area. For tomorrow, 30 30% chance of shower and thunderstorm activity. It'll be a breezy day, a warm day with more thunderstorms around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and and some of these could be severe. Now, as this whole system starts to edge closer to us, I do think the big boomers will be across the northeastern portion of the state, but a better chance of some thunderstorm activity by around Wednesday, 50% chance at least. So here's a forecast for Galveston Bay. Choppy to rough waters, and look at the wind forecast for tomorrow. Southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, so a small craft advisory may be required. Beach water temperature 62 degrees, and offshore small crafts are expected to exercise caution tonight. 5 to 7 foot seas tomorrow. Southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, so this is increasing as well. Here's the 3-day forecast for you. Cloudy skies tonight. Again, that's increasing cloudiness. Overnight low of 58, a high of 74 degrees, a 30% chance of rain. That jumps up to 50% chance on Wednesday, so a few thunderstorms should be scattered about by then. 72 for the high, and then a frontal system will be moving on through early Thursday, but not a lot of cool air behind it. A high of 70 on Thursday, and this weekend I'm getting the feeling it's going to be warm and muggy with a few clouds around.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
It's been nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Still ahead, Marvin Zindler is angered over the condition of an elderly nursing home resident. And we'll show you how the TV of the future may mean long-distance diagnosis.
A new TV network has a captive audience in the nation's classrooms. We'll see the debut. Also, a close-up look at an HISD appointment that's pitted Hispanic groups against the school board.
Change can happen. It's hard to believe my daughter Linda is the same person. She's out of her depression, and she's talking to her family and me. She even went back to college for that degree she never finished. Thanks, West Oaks. Things can get better.
If your need for change involves depression, call West Oaks at 777-7100, because change can happen.
After bringing your prescription into an EyeMasters optical superstore and selecting your frames from thousands in stock, with the help of an eye care specialist, within about 60 minutes, your glasses from EyeMasters will be ready, because every EyeMasters optical superstore has a lab to custom make your lenses in about 60 minutes. And now, when you buy one, get a second pair free. Look for the coupon in your newspaper. Get a better look at EyeMasters.
Well, a Houston woman said she got the shock of her life when she visited her mother in a local nursing home. And Action 13's Marvin Zindler has the story.
This story upsets me to no end. It's hard to believe what happened, but a picture doesn't lie. Charlene Puri and her sister visited their 82-year-old mother 2 or 3 times a week at the Winter Haven Nursing Home, where she's been since February. When Charlene visited her mother Sunday evening, February the 25th, Charlene said she got the shock of her life when she went into her mother's room. Charlene said her mother was in severe pain. The picture of her mother you're about to see is so graphic, we're only going to show it to you for a few seconds.
She was one solid bruise all on her left side, underneath her arm, all the way to her back, down her left arm, with a big pocket underneath her left arm, swollen like the size of an orange.
Charlene said she immediately got a nurse who said she didn't know anything about the bruises and it didn't happen on her shift. Then Charlene called her mother's doctor, who told her to get her mother to Parkway Hospital immediately, where she is today.
And what did the folks at Winter Haven say when you told them about this?
They said they knew nothing about it, that they knew nothing about it.
Did they ever call you? Nobody called you about this at all?
No, sir. Nobody called me whatsoever. I had been home all day. Nobody had called me at all.
I asked Charlene if her mother told her how she got those horrible, horrible bruises.
So you think it was the restrainer that might have been
And
on?
two, with the marking that she had that ended right here, it looked like, yes, that's the first thing I thought it was, that they had that restrainer on her so tight that that's what had caused this.
How could this happen? Someone must know. But Winter Haven Administrator Glenda Donahue, who refused an interview on camera, said the employees told her they didn't know anything about it, and neither did she. The Texas State Health Department is investigating. It just so happens that I've received information that the Winter Haven Nursing Home has gotten some good marks from the State Health Department. However, what happened to Charlene's mother is unforgivable. It just shouldn't have happened. I know the owners of Winter Haven are concerned, And I would hope that each employee of Winter Haven feel the same way. After all, someday they might live long enough to be in a nursing home. Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Marvin. On a better note now, the days of the doctor's house call may be over forever, but something far more meaningful and almost as personal may be right around the corner, and it's all because of television. Debbie Johnson reports from Texas Children's Hospital.
You're going to put one finger straight out, you're going to touch your nose, and then you're going to touch my finger.
This is not your routine medical exam. 12-year-old Emily Masterson is being diagnosed by specialists at Texas Children's Hospital in the medical center. Emily is in a downtown office. Dr. Huda Zogby is looking at Emily on a high-definition television picture transmitted by Southwestern Bell's fiber optic network. It's a first in medical history and a potential breakthrough in providing access to specialized medicine. It's part of a new program established by Texas Children's Hospital and Southwestern Bell that will study the use of high-definition television in improving access to medical facilities. High-definition television, or HDT, is a much brighter, clearer, and detailed picture of standard television, and doctors hope its use can be applied to transmitting important medical data, such as electrocardiograms, CAT scans, and X-rays.
Such an integrated system will allow our expert to be extended literally to wherever there is a communication link adequate enough to deliver such information.
It costs roughly $750,000 to establish such a hookup and would involve remote units that could be set up in other hospitals or locations for the patient to be transmitted from. Experts hope to have such locations online within the next year, but there are many problems yet to be ironed out.
It'll be a little while before you can wander down to Radio Shack and pick up the kind of high-tech hardware we're talking about here today. But because of the placement of the network, the high fiber optic network by our firm, the transmission medium is here that will allow this to take place.
As the research center explores the possibilities for HDT in the medical arena, its findings will be published nationwide, setting new precedents for the entire healthcare industry. Funding for the center is expected to come from grants as well as federal agencies.
Initially, the network will service the Houston area, where intensive care patients at other participating hospitals, for example, can benefit from the expertise at the research center without the trauma and danger of being transported. But the potential here is enormous, because once the mobile unit or units are online, rural Texas and the nation can benefit from the expertise right here at the Texas Medical Center. Debbie Johnson, 13 Eyewitness News.
On another medical note, when you think of bowed legs, well, cowboys frequently come to mind, but cowboys and bow legs don't necessarily go together, as we learn in this report from Dr. Red Duke.
You know, there's a lot of mystique and romance about cowboys, but being a working cowboy is hard work, and it's hard on their bodies. I guarantee you, after I've been riding one of these things, I walk funny, too. That probably explains why folks think being bow-legged is part of being a cowboy.
But this is a myth. Just because cowboys spend a lot of time in the saddle with their legs slightly bent to fit the horse's chest does not mean that their legs are going to warp like a tree being bent. By the time cowboys start working long hours, their bones are just about fully grown and they don't bend.
It's only in the growing bone that there's a possibility of the bone being changed in its shape, and that is in the bone from birth to about 15 years of age. And those forces would have to have forces on it for a major part of the time.
If some cowboys appear to walk a little funny, it's probably because their joints and ligaments have been damaged by all the wear and tear of their work. They just get osteoarthritis earlier than most folks. It is important to stress, however, that nearly every child is a little bow-legged until around the age of 2 to 2.5. But as they continue to grow, their leg bones nearly always straighten out.
No question, a lot of riding will make you a little sore, but that damage isn't permanent. And come the next opportunity, those of us that love them are going to get right back up in the saddle. From the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, I'm Dr. Red Duke.
Thank you, Doctor, and take a good look because the annual post-rodeo spring cleaning of the Astrodome and the adjoining buildings began bright and early this morning. This year's rodeo and livestock show attracted a record more than 1.25 million visitors. And to some of the cleanup crew, it seemed as though each one had left something behind. The bulk of the early activity was focused on the task of dismantling 1 mile of steel tubing corrals, pens, and utility fences. That will be followed by loading and removing almost 3,600 cubic yards of dirt from the Astrodome floor. Another 1,300 cubic yards will be shoveled from the Astro Hall and Astro Arena. The next event in the Dome, off-road racing, is set for March 31st. And coming up, a court case over the Houston School Board's newest member.
And a look at the whole controversy swirling around that school board appointment.
At Sims, we'd like you to get acquainted with our store on Westheimer between Wilcrest and West Belt Drive, opening this Thursday, March 8th, with Get Acquainted prices. Sims is the off-price representative for over 200 designer and brand names in men's, women's, and children's clothing. Get Acquainted prices start this Thursday, March 8th, at Sims on Westheimer between Wilcrest and West Belt Drive. At Sims, an educated consumer is our best customer.
Going fishing? Oh, not until you've seen the 15th Annual Fishing Show. Coming March 6th through 11th to the George R. Brown Convention Center. Everything for the fisherman, including a spectacular selection of rods, reels, and baits. Hundreds of completely equipped boats, from the offshore blue water rig to the newest and high-performance bass boats. Don't miss Houston's fishing extravaganza. Going on March 6th through 11th at George R. Brown Convention Center downtown. Adults $5, children under 12, $1.
Star Furniture, Star Furniture, the furniture you really want is all right here.
A lot of people are asking me how Star Furniture has become the new leader in furniture in Houston. We did it by offering quality like this at prices like this. Can you afford not to shop at Star?
Can you afford not to shop at Star? Star Furniture, Star Furniture.
Trial began today for a Houston woman accused of stabbing, then setting fire to another woman 2 years ago. Lisa Michelle McNeil appeared in Judge Brian Rain's court for motion hearings. Her attorneys want to keep an incriminating videotape from being used as evidence in the trial. That videotape contains testimony given by Matilda Edwards in a hospital shortly before she died. In that tape, Edwards identifies McNeil and another woman as the pair who took her to an isolated area where they stabbed her, poured gasoline on her, and then set her on fire. Edwards was burned over 90% of her body. A judge's decision on that tape could come tomorrow.
Testimony began today in a lawsuit brought by some Houston community activists who want to have the newest Houston School District board member removed from office. A community group is asking that HISD be enjoined from proceeding with the appointment last month of Felix Fraga to replace Tina Reyes, who resigned from the HISD board. The group contends the meeting at which Fraga was appointed was in violation of the state's open meetings law. However, HISD attorneys claim the group is not within its legal rights to challenge Fraga's appointment and contends the court has no jurisdiction in the case. Well, Civil District Judge Don Wittig has scheduled another hearing for tomorrow, at which he is expected to make a ruling in the case.
The Fraga appointment is one of the most controversial Hispanic issues to hit Houston in recent years. And tonight, Carlos Aguilar looks at what's caused this uproar in the Hispanic community.
Some say the fight is over the education of children.
I fought from way back since the 60s and 70s, and we have to continue for the rights of our children to get a good education.
Others say the fight is over the business of education, who will get millions in school district contracts.
Many of us have witnessed the decline of our inner city schools for some time. Power brokers and money men have been served well.
The overall concern, however, is the way the whole thing was handled.
Let's talk about the issue that the board had made a decision, and for whatever reason, they didn't take us into account.
But this thing was cut and dry long before we had the meeting the other day.
At issue was filling the vacancy created by the long-rumored resignation of Tina Reyes, who held the Houston School District Board position that represents District 8 in Northeast Houston. Last October, when 1,000 Austin High School students in her district walked out protesting conditions at their school, Tina Reyes was not around during the walkout. Since the start of this school year, Reyes missed a third of the school board meetings. She wasn't on hand for the announcement of her resignation. She had moved out of her residence in the district and joined her husband in Madison, Wisconsin. There was a push to appoint someone to replace her, some arguing there were pending issues at hand, such as the special legislative session on school finance and the district budget, and that somebody was needed to fill the District 8 position.
HSD has a lot at stake, and we need all 9 board members working hard.
Others wondered why the board didn't voice those same concerns during her absence.
Now, if they needed a body the whole time to be so important, what were they doing for the last 5 months that Tina was going to college? They didn't need anybody then. All of a sudden, the budget is coming up.
According to sources, after the resignation, the issue of replacing Reyes was discussed privately at the District Administration Building by Board President Kathy Mintzberg, Superintendent Joan Raymond, members of HISPAC, a close-knit group of Hispanic professionals, and some leaders of TMO, a community group that helped push adoption of Project Renewal, a $625 million capital improvements program for the district. The discussion centered on going about appointing a replacement for Reyes.
This is an open meeting.
A few days later, a larger faction of Hispanics, representing some 35 community groups, along with other interested HISD residents, met to openly discuss the replacement of Reyes.
Sylvia Garcia, I'm the Chief Judge of the City of Houston Municipal Court. Mariana Santos, Texas LACLA, UFCW Local 408.
David Vela, representing Martinez's office.
Justify the meeting with HISPAC.
Jose Salazar, Council of Hispanic Educators and Support Systems.
The preference here was for a special election to be held as soon as possible, such as May 5th, so that constituents in District 8 could field candidates and vote for someone to replace Reyes. After much heated discussion, it was agreed to support an election rather than an appointment to fill the school board vacancy. But the few who favored an appointment met again, this time at the home of Houston City Councilman Ben Reyes. Again, these discussions were held behind closed doors. HISD Board President Kathy Mintzberg was at this meeting too. Channel 13 sent someone to cover the meeting, but was not allowed in.
There were about 150 people that wanted to listen to both sides of the issue, and they did. And it was without a whole lot of cameras or without a lot of TV, a lot of newspaper involved. It was a very healthy kind of discussion.
I'm getting a real mixed review. It's obvious the Hispanic community is divided on this issue, on whether to go election or appointed position. I'm at a loss, along with probably most of the board, on exactly what is the right answer.
The push for an appointment continued up until the special board meeting held to replace Dina Reyes, and respected East Side community social worker Felix Fraga was brought in for that selection.
We want to hear from you on your thoughts.
I would like to now formally present to you a suggestion and a candidate for a position if you reach a conclusion that an appointment should be held.
But there was a feeling among those wanting an election that the proponents of an appointment had won over the school board, and that the board was just going through the motions of hearing from concerned citizens.
Your mind was already made up. How can you possibly be confused when 98% of the people you met with were for an election and 2% were for an appointment?
The board voted to appoint Fraga on the condition that he resign in July in order to have an election for District 8 in August. Many who had come to speak in favor of an election to be held at an earlier date were upset that Board President Mintzberg did not allow them to provide their input, and were not satisfied with what they were being told was a compromise. Carlos Aguilar, 13 Eyewitness News.
Well, time to get your VCRs ready. It's almost time for the plays of the week.
Bob Allen and Jeff McShann return with the good, the bad, and the off the wall.
You're not going to lose weight by going to the refrigerator during this commercial. Go to the telephone instead. That's right. Now, pick it up and call Diet Center and ask about a quick and easy way to lose weight that won't cost you an arm and a leg. What have you got to lose? Get serious. Call Diet Center.
Don't wait. Call 892-0092 now for the Diet Center nearest you.
Everybody knows that milk's for babies. Charming, disarming, whatever they do. Wouldn't you know it, baby? Milk's for you. Soft baby skin, baby bones, bright baby smile, ooh, great muscle tone. Wouldn't you know it, baby, milk's for you. It's a health kick, baby.
This is old, this is new. Introducing thousands of the hottest brand name items in America now at Montgomery Ward.
With big screens, hot jeans, everybody's dream machine.
What else is new?
Amazing, crazy amounts of power and megabytes.
America's hottest brand names backed by the Montgomery Ward Price Match Guarantee. And it's just the beginning.
Montgomery Ward, what's new is what's in it for you.
Okay, let's look at some of the best and some of the worst. Here's Bob Allen again.
Some of the strangest, some of the weirdest. 'Tis Monday. Time to take a look at the unusual, the weird, the wacky, the wild. Here's Jeff.
Long counts, short counts, you can count on boxing to make news. Buster wrestling with his fame. Evander Holyfield taking any fight he can. Oh, say can you see? Here comes another edition of our Plays of the Week. We start with DePaul before they lost to Texas. Here's Scottie Pippen. But to make our reel, it doesn't have to be late or long. It just has to go in. And you have to be real cool about it too, right, Mr. Riley? And remember, Phoenix, cotton shrinks when it gets wet. And not every one of Isaiah's passes hit the mark this past week. Yep, Isaiah, they're laughing at you. John Cullen's punch hit the mark, you might say, and so does this cross-check on John Kelly. Watch Joey Mullen hit the post, and Scott Melleby hit the goalie. And USC's Murph Proctor hits his catcher. Yep, right in the head. But no one, and we mean no one, hit Stefan Richer. Does anyone really know what the Suns are doing here with those blue suede shoes? Jay Miller pleading for no mas. Alan May offers uno mas. Tommy Lasorda, is that part of that slim fast diet? Well, I guess popcorn is low-cal, right, Mrs. McEnroe? So just don't gum up the works. Basketball, a physical game. By yourself, with a friend, or just lying around on the floor. From our extra effort category, Michael Cooper, who was taken to a hospital. Mark Jackson, who took a seat. Kevin Johnson, who took flight. And Ronnie Cycli, who took up 3 seats. Well, there's our cue. Yep, that's our cue. Time to go any way you can. Until next week's 8th crazy episode, I'm Jeff McShann, 13 Eyewitness Sports.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Let me remind you once again, if you've got any home sports video that you've got of your child, of yourself, whatever you got that you think is unusual, interesting, just good that you'd like to see on TV, we're starting a new segment called Take Your Shot, and we're going to start that shortly. We're getting all the video in that we can right now. It'll all be returned to you. Send us the video to us here at Channel 13, P.O. Box 13, and we'll, with a description of who it is, what the event is, so forth and so on. We'll take a look at it, we'll dub it off, we'll get it back to you, but we're going to start this segment before too long. So if you got any of it lying around, send it in to us. We'd like to see it, and we'd like to show it to everybody else.
We need to get those spring T-ball games going because they're always a hoot.
Yeah, they're fun to watch.
Yeah. Thanks,
okay,
Bob.
Thanks. Still ahead, we've got a controversial new TV network for students only.
And we will remember a very special 40th birthday.
Tonight,
came to get you out of here.
Flight to Freedom.
Get in here, let's go! Can we discuss this?
Could be MacGyver's last. Then,
You promise me you'll keep them together.
at 15 years old, he was left alone to raise his brothers.
I ain't going.
They need to be with me.
It's the law, Terry.
All we want is to be a family.
Rick Schroeder, based on a true story, A Son's Promise.
I went to my neighborhood TSO, nothing out of the ordinary. And what happened next was, well, I was picking out my glasses when all of a sudden this strange feeling comes over me like I had done it all before. Anyway, here's the weird part. When I got home, I had 2 new pairs of glasses. Same prescription.
TSO, affordable eyewear from a family of doctors.
Mexico.
Come to where the sun warms your spirit and the people warm your heart. Come, feel the warmth of Mexico.
What I like about the heat pump is the softer, more gentle air, and I kind of like the rebate too. Just give them a call.
A new television network began programming this morning, but you won't get to see any of it unless you're a middle school or high school student. That network is called Channel 1, and it stirred up something of a controversy. Stephen Govain has the story.
There's now something new for the video generation, and they don't have to wait till after school to see it. A network called Channel 1 signed on the air today with the first of what will be a show a day, Monday through Friday. It is a slick 12-minute package of the top news stories, plus a few quick facts of interest.
It's pop quiz time. Who was the first U.S. president to show his solidarity with the people of divided Berlin by saying in German that he was a Berliner?
The answer is President John F. Kennedy. The pop quiz was given in conjunction with a major 5-part story about the Berlin Wall airing all this week.
Well, that will be our topic for this week during that one section. We're going to give you some background on Eastern Europe and talk about how the wall came down last fall and let you know the significance of why there was the Berlin Wall.
Future multi-part stories on Channel 1 will cover South Africa, jobs, and drugs. A show of hands in this class revealed that most of the students watch conventional news shows at home. One thing the kids say they like better on Channel 1 is the frequent use of maps to show where the stories were taking place.
Channel 1 goes more into detail about those topics, and the topics are more current. And they're better, and I really...
Just like regular TV, Channel 1 is commercially sponsored. The debut show carried 4 spots, one for M&M's, Cheetos, Gillette, and a public service ad with an anti-drug message. The commercials have been criticized by some educators who complain that students are a captive audience. Channel 1 Representative Brian Montgomery says the network will not air ads for beer or alcohol, cigarettes, firearms, or political candidates. The students didn't seem to mind the commercials.
There's nothing wrong with it because when you watch news on Channel 13 or Channel 11 or something, they still have commercials in between. And they do on Channel 1, and either way you're going to see commercials, so it really wouldn't matter.
In my class, we'll be using commercials as a teaching tool as well. And I think it's important for them to understand that commercialism is all around us, and there's no way to get around it. We've got to learn how to deal with it.
Advertisers pay $150,000 for a 30-second ad. Much of that money goes toward equipping subscribing schools. Channel 1 pays all the costs for getting its programs shown in the schools. They pay for the satellite dish, all new television sets, plus 2 VCRs. They also pay installation and labor, and the average cost per school is about $40,000. The state boards of education of California and New York have rejected Channel 1 because of the commercials. But the program is now in some 400 schools in 34 states, with about 2,300 other schools signed up and waiting to get their equipment. The Texas Board of Education has left it up to individual school districts whether to air Channel 1. At Aldine Junior High School, Stephen Govain, 13 Eyewitness News.
And now with an uninterrupted weather forecast, here's Joe Diaz.
Yeah, that's good, Sheriff. Dave, we're looking at some snow working into the central Rockies, and thunderstorms will be on the increase in our area as we get into the forecast. Here's a travel forecast. Atlanta will be sunny, a high of 68 degrees. Boston sunny and chilly, 30. Chicago cloudy, 36 degrees. Now, snow could be heavy at Denver tonight, and still some snow continuing into the morning there, 32 for the eventual high. Detroit sunny, 35. Las Vegas will be sunny, 65 degrees. Los Angeles sunny, 67. Partly sunny skies in New Orleans, 74. Cloudy in New York with some morning rain and drizzle, 35 degrees. And Orlando will be partly sunny, 78. To St. Louis, cloudy with a high of 60 degrees. They could have some showers here and there. And Washington, D.C. a little bit on the cloudy side as it warms to 46 degrees. For us, clouds will be increasing tonight. A mostly cloudy day tomorrow, a 30% chance of rain, high of 74 degrees. I think there will be a thunder shower across the area or two. Now, better chance for some thunderstorms to work into the area on Wednesday. Cloudy sky, 63 for the low, 72 for the high, 50% chance of thunderstorms. And then as a frontal system moves through early on Thursday, still on the warm side, maybe some morning showers, but a drier day as we get into Thursday. And still looks like it'll be on the warm side, though.
We'll hang on to our umbrellas until Until then, thanks, Joe.
Coming up tonight at 10, we'll have an update on the story where an official with the state's racing commission and his family been found dead today. Commission Administrator David Yost, his wife and 2 children, all found shot to death in their home just to the south of Austin. Authorities are not releasing any details, but Texas Rangers have been called in to help in that investigation. More on that story coming up tonight at 10 on Eyewitness News Tonight. Final item here this evening at the 1990 International Toy Fair underway in California. An important anniversary comes up tomorrow. At the Toy Fair in 1950, Silly Putty made its first appearance, and a giant 40th anniversary birthday cake made out of Silly Putty is ready for the big celebration tomorrow. Since its inception, Silly Putty sold more than 200 million eggs, or 3,000 tons of the stuff, enough to circle the globe 3 times. It's just as popular with children today, and it's now available in 4 new fluorescent colors. The news release said Silly Putty would be available for television news anchors on request, but some producers stole mine. Anyway, happy birthday to Silly Putty. Where would we be without it today?
Oh, those producers are bad at that.
That's true. That's the news for this evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Join us again at 10. Until then, good evening.